welcome to Crimepedia. I am your host, Cherry, and with me is the lovely Morgan. Hello.
Hello, it's been so long.
It has. So in yesterday's episode, we were discussing Dennis Nilsen and the crimes that he has committed, and they were generally
Mhm,
over two different addresses that he did all these crimes. If you haven't listened to
mhm.
yesterday's episode, go and listen to it first, because otherwise today's episode is not going to make a lot of sense to you. You need to listen to yesterday's to find out the sort of lead up to all this happening. So we're now at number 23, Cranley Gardens. He's now been asked to leave Melrose Avenue because the landlord is doing up the flat because of the horrible smells and the damp, horrible conditions
Yeah.
of the flat, which we
Mhm.
know is nothing to do with the actual damp. And now he's moved into an attic flat at a place called 23 Cranley Gardens, which is in Muswell Hill in London.
Okay, and this is 1981, correct?
So this is 1981, that's right. And he has got no access now to an outside garden. So there's no access to outside space. There's also no floorboards, which obviously is quite important to him. So I don't really
Mhm.
know why he took on an attic flat.
Yeah. I was gonna say, did he think about this? I mean, he had to have known that this was gonna be trouble for him.
Perhaps he was hoping that this might stop him from doing what he's been doing. Perhaps
Oh,
you never
interesting,
know.
yeah.
It could be that he's hoping that it's going to end. And then obviously now, because he's not able to do what he was doing before, he then stops murdering for a while, and he has men back to his flat. They have sexual encounters, but there's no assaults, there's no strangulations, there's no bad business going on. It's literally just sexual encounters. But in March of 1982, he met a guy called John Howlett in a pub in London, and he strangled him, back to his old tricks again, strangled him and disposed of him in places within his house.
Okay.
So he's in a flat, obviously, an upstairs flat. In May of 1982, so this is 2 months later, he met a 21-year-old guy called Carl Stotter. And this is a very strange, I don't know why this happened. He invited him back to his flat and they got very drunk. And Carl fell asleep on a sleeping bag, which was on Dennis Nilsen's bed. He woke up to find Dennis Nilsen strangling him, and he reports that he initially thought that Dennis was trying to free him out of the zip of the sleeping bag. He thought he had got caught while he was
Mm,
sleeping, and was
yeah.
trying to get him out. But in fact, he then said to him, just keep still, and carried on trying to sort of strangle him. So he strangles him to the point of unconsciousness. And this Carl guy actually comes back and is interviewed and says that he remembers drifting in and out of consciousness. So he doesn't really know what's going on. He remembers that Dennis Nilsen was in
Mhm.
some sort of like a trance almost. He was in this like really weird kind of like cracking on with this and not really knowing what he was doing. It was also almost automatic. He says that when he went into the bath, he took him into the bath and tried drowning him, thought that he had killed him, but didn't actually realize that he hadn't. When he went back to touch him, he found that he was literally just clinging on to life. So he covered him in blankets and rubbed his body to improve the circulation until he brought him back round.
Yeah. Now, didn't he say something along the lines of, "Oh, no, it's happened again," or something like that?
Yeah, he said, "Oh no, here I go again," before he started strangling him. And so
So
yeah,
strange.
it's really weird. And this time he brings him back round, he warms him up until he wakes up, and he's in the sleeping bag, and he explains to him that he was stuck in the sleeping bag and that he was trying to revive him, that he actually died
Mm,
and he brought him back. So he's almost like a bit thankful, a bit confused of what's going on, but he's
yeah.
actually, awake and absolutely fine. Dennis Nilsen then takes him to a railway station and then just lets him go and says, "I hope we can see each other again."
This is quite strange,
Really strange,
right? I
considering
mean,
every other bloke he's killed and dismembered,
mhm.
and now this one
So,
is let go.
and this is the first time we've heard of him doing something like this, right? Where
That's right.
he's attacked and then either realizes what he's doing
Mm.
or he decides not to go through with it. So he has not done this before.
No, there are reports that he was very upset after he killed some of the men. He would like absolutely fall about in tears. He would be very remorseful. He'd be very upset of what he's done. But obviously, it's too late. But this
Yeah.
one, he actually lets go. He lets this guy go, and that's a big risk, isn't it? That this guy would then go to the police and say, "Look, he
Oh,
tried to
yeah.
kill me again." So that's two. That's two that have got away now. That have gone. I don't think this guy went to the police then. I think he probably just felt like he was really lucky to get
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
So in 1982, he met 27-year-old Graham Phelan, and I think that's how you say it, Phelan. He strangled him again. This is obviously seems to be his method of choice.
Yeah.
And he kept his body in the bath for 3 days. So his body was in the bathroom for 3 days before he dismembered him. Now, during the
Mm.
times of now, it does when you look back over the reports, it seems that every time, particularly in the Cranley Gardens place, every time there was a victim, he would call into work to say he was unable to work, whether he was sick or there was a reason why he didn't go to work. And it seems to
Okay.
show every victim from Cranley Gardens because he's having to dismember them. He didn't have the storage facilities he had before in the previous
Yeah.
house. Now he's having to dismember them. And what he would do is he would the head boil the flesh of the bodies
Uh-huh.
and tip it down the sink and down the toilet. So he
Oh,
would
no.
yeah, so he would sort of that's how he would get rid of these bodies. I mean, the human body contains a lot of blood and a lot of water, um,
Yeah.
and obviously quite a lot of fat when you boil. If you ever boil chicken bones, you see the sort of fat that comes on the surface of the water, and obviously a
Mhm.
human body, there's a lot of fat in there, so that would be a not very nice task. But also, it must absolutely stink.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Boiling flesh must smell really bad.
Mm-mm.
So basically, he's called into work sick every time. He then in January 1983, 26th of January, this is his final victim. 20-year-old Stephen Sinclair. And if you watch the TV program, the TV, it's not a documentary, it's more like a drama series.
Okay.
And this Des we've been watching in England. In this, he does remember, he's trying to remember the name of this guy because obviously the police which I'll explain how he's caught in a minute, but the police do obviously catch him and they're trying to ascertain who these people are that he's murdered. And he's trying in the documentary to remember who this Stephen. I know his name's Stephen. And they're like, well, you must know his surname. There must have been a conversation. He's like, well, no, there wasn't. And he said, well, I'm sure he did mention it at some point. And it's very matter of fact how he talks about this Stephen Sinclair. So again, with Stephen Sinclair, he strangled him with a necktie and a rope this time. He bathed
Mm.
the body, lay the body on the bed, covered the body with talcum powder, and arranged 3 mirrors around the body, and then went to sleep next to him.
Mm.
It doesn't say that there's any sexual contact whilst he was asleep. It just says that they placed the mirrors around him and went to sleep.
Yeah.
So in the next
What's the point of the mirrors, though?
I don't know, maybe whether he can see him from it's a sexual thing, he can see all of the body at once, maybe?
Yeah. I don't know if it's sexual, though.
You don't? You
You
don't think
know?
so?
I think it's more companionship, right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
maybe.
I definitely think there is a sexual component to it, right?
Yeah.
But the thought of, placing him in bed and being next to him, that goes beyond sexual.
Yeah. Because he's not actually doing anything sexual with him. He's just laying next to him in bed. So with this one,
Yeah.
he doesn't sort of do anything. It doesn't say anything about masturbation, doesn't say anything about him touching him, other than he covers him in talcum powder, which also again is a bit I don't know why he did that.
I
Um
don't know.
So then basically the next day he dissects him and puts different parts of his body in different parts of the flat. So he puts him like under the bath, in the wardrobe, in a tea chest in his bedroom. He flushed parts of
Mhm.
him down the toilet. And on the this is crazy. On the 4th of February 1983,
Mhm.
this is a month, just not even a month after he's killed Stephen Sinclair. He writes a letter of complaint to the estate agents to complain that the drains are blocked at the
Oh,
property.
no.
Like, what are you even thinking?
Uh-huh.
So he complains that the drains are blocked and that it's not good enough that these drains are blocked. Now, on the 8th of February 1983, um, a guy called, I don't know if you have Dino Rod. I don't know if it's like an international thing, but there's a company over here called Dino Rod, and they basically specialize in drains and drainage and that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
you
Oh,
tend
yeah,
to, if you have
we have Roto-Rooter,
oh, okay.
I think is the big one here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Dino Rod is our big one here. And they call out Dino Rod. This guy comes out, a guy called Michael Catron, and he comes out to have a look around to see what the problem is. Now, the plumbing complaints have been made by Nilsen and other tenants. So other tenants have moaned that there's something wrong with the drains. Now, I would imagine if you've got stinking smells coming up, you automatically blame the drains. You don't think that there's a body being flushed down your toilet upstairs.
Mhm.
Um, so he came to 23 Cranley Gardens and opened a drain cover at the side of the house. He discovered that the drain was packed with like fleshy substance and lots of small bones. He reports this to his supervisor, and
Yeah.
it got there at dusk. So they then agreed to postpone any investigation into the blockage until the following morning so that they could have a proper look. And they actually, Nielsen and another tenant came down and spoke with him about the source of this weird fatty substance on the top of the water.
Yeah.
Now, he explains that this guy from Dino Rod says it is quite similar to like human flesh. And then Dennis Nielsen says to him, well, it looks to me like someone's been flushing down their KFC. I was like,
No,
oh
no,
no, he's
no.
even given reasons as to why there might be small bones in the sewer,
Uh-huh.
which is really weird. So the following
No.
morning at 7:30 in the morning, this guy and his supervisor return back to 23 Cranley Gardens,
Mhm.
but this point the drain is completely clear. So
What?
this is very suspicious to them because they're like, well, that wouldn't have sorted itself out. So somebody has done something. So they go down into the drain and they do some more digging, and they find some scraps of flesh and four little bones, like small bones. Um,
Uh-huh.
Now, they say that it looked like animal flesh or it looked like small animal bones. So what they do is they take them away to a mortuary at Hornsey, where a pathologist looks at them and then advises the police that these remains are actually human. And that
Oh,
one
okay.
piece of flesh he found had been from a human neck and it bore a ligature mark.
Oh, man.
So this is
And so
flesh
this is
big enough
because
to see.
and this is all because the Roto-Rooter guys or whatever what do you call them? Dino Rooter or whatever?
Dino rod, yeah,
Dino Rod because they were like, "Okay, it's only strange. We're gonna go and have this checked out." So they're
exactly.
doing more than what they
Yeah.
really are expected to do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only because they've looked at it and thought that's a bit weird that it's now empty and there's still bones in there. So they've basically
Yeah.
gone and said that. So they actually called the police. And the police turned up to the property, and Dennis Nielsen had already gone to work. So they looked into the drain and actually found out that the top floor flat where he had been living,
Mhm.
that is where this stuff had come from. So they've actually sort of worked it back up to the flat. So they know
Mhm.
exactly which flat has been contributing to this. So the police are then
Yeah,
there waiting.
because they found that there was blockage above, like,
Yep.
the bottom the first floor flat.
So
So if
they,
there's a
yeah,
blockage
yeah,
above where the bathroom is or whatever of the lower flat, then it has to the only one place it can come from is
is the
above, which
top
would
floor
be
flat. Yeah, which
yeah,
is
okay.
his flat. So they know that it's come from him. So basically he's busted now, but nobody knows where he works. Nobody knows who he is because the other tenants don't know him. He's not really spoken to them. So they basically wait outside the flat for him to come home from work. He comes home from work. The police then say to him, look, we need to speak to you inside, please. And he's a bit like, well, what are you
Mhm.
doing here? Why are you looking in the drains? He must have been thinking, shit, I am
Yeah.
done for. That's it now. This is it.
Mhm.
They go up to the flat and they realize that there's a not very nice smell coming from the flat. So they know that something is going on. And the police officer is a guy called Detective Chief Inspector Peter J. And he and his colleagues go up into the flat and speak to Nielsen. And they say to him, "We think that there are human remains in the sewer." And he actually says to the policeman, "Good grief, how awful."
Oh, Jesus.
And the policeman says to him, "Don't mess about. Where's the body?" And
Yeah, yeah.
Nielsen just calmly turns and says to him, "It's in the wardrobe." So the police officer's like, "Oh my God, is he serious?" Sends this
Yeah.
guy that's with him to look into the wardrobe. He looks into the wardrobe and is like
Yep.
sick in his mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
And then there are plastic bags by the wardrobe, removed from the wardrobe, that were two dissected torsos, one of which had been vertically dissected, and a shopping bag
Oh.
containing various internal organs.
Oh, no.
Then there's a second bag that contains a human skull, which has got near enough no flesh left on it, a severed head, and a torso with arms attached, but the hands are missing.
I think it's too late to call a trigger warning, right?
Definitely.
Hey, trigger warning.
I should have told you. I told you you should listen to yesterday's first before this one. So, so that's what's in his shopping bags.
That's what's in his shopping bags.
That's
Okay.
what's in his shopping bags in the wardrobe. So now we know for definite he's now definitely been caught. He then says to the
Mhm.
police, "Look, okay, I've got to come clean. I've got to get it off my chest, but I don't want to talk about it here." Um, you know, Detective Inspector J says to him, "Look, okay, you need to tell us what's going on." He says, "I'll tell you everything. I just want to get it off my chest, but I don't want to be here. Can we please go to the police station?" So he's arrested and cautioned on suspicion of murder, even though the bodies are there. So it's actual murder. And he's escorted to Hornsey Police Station. So they asked him whether the remains in his flat belonged to one person or two, which is really strange because he found two torsos. So it's obvious it belongs to two. Um, and he basically then comes clean. He says, "If you go and have a look in the tea chest in my living room, and if you have a look at a drawer in my bathroom, there's more body parts. The dismembered body parts are all parts of men who I'd killed with, via strangulation, usually with a necktie. But there's one victim that he couldn't name, another one that he only knew as like John, the guardsman. Um,
Mhm.
and so doesn't remember every single person's name, because I mean there are a lot of them, and it's over it's spanning over a few years. So he basically says to the policeman that there are at least 12 or 13 men at his former address, which is 195 Melrose Avenue, and then he's attempted and unsuccessfully attempted to kill approximately 7 or 8 other people. So it's really matter of fact. The way that he says it is basically just like he's telling you what happened like yesterday. It's really, really strange. When they ask him why he did it, he says, "I was hoping that you could tell me that." He doesn't actually know. And he says when he's talking to the police that he didn't plan to murder these people. It just kind of happened, which
So
I
strange.
I can't see how you just grab hold of a tie, strangle somebody to the point of being unconscious and then drowning them in a bath just happens. To me, that's not what just happens.
Yeah.
So he does say that he had a ritual of bathing the bodies afterwards in an effort to kind of completely remove their identity prior to their murder. So he's basically using them as a prop in the fantasies that he's having. He sort of removes their personality, their whole, and he's just using them as something that basically he just gets off on. And he then goes into huge detail about how he got rid of the bodies, how he dismembered them, how he. I'm not going to go into all that. How it's quite graphic and it's disgusting, to be fair.
Yeah.
So he is actually formally charged. He does say that he wished he could stop it, but he couldn't. He didn't have any other thrills or happiness in his life, and this was the only thing that gave him thrills and happiness, and that he took no pleasure in the act of killing people, but actually worshipped the art and the act of death itself. Mm.
So strange.
I mean, it's really
So
odd, isn't it?
strange.
And,
Yeah.
and and it's even more odd when you if you read the transcripts of exactly what he says, it's very calm and very like he's recalling a story of, like, walking along
Mhm.
the beach. It's a really strange way that he does it. So in 1983, in February, on the 11th of February 1983, he was actually officially charged with the murder of Stephen Sinclair because they've got his body there. All of these other bodies, obviously, they've got no actual evidence of all these other people. So for all they know, he could have killed this one guy and then just be, bragging about the rest of them. He could be lying about the rest of
Yeah.
them. So they actually arrest him on this Stephen Sinclair murder because that's the one that they can actually get him on. They've got remains of Stephen Sinclair, and then they transferred him to Brixton Prison, which he was held on remand there. Now, he says that he was quite relieved that he was actually being taken to prison because it isn't something that he's proud of. He he left himself to himself really in prison. Um,
Yeah.
he was a bit there were some weird things that happened there. He refused to wear any clothes. And in which case they made him stay in his cell. They wouldn't let him out, which is quite clever because it
Yeah.
means that he doesn't have to be around anybody else. So on the 1st of August, Dennis Nilsen threw the contents of his chamber pot out of his cell. So he's thrown, feces and urine out of his cell, hitting several prison officers. Now,
Uh-huh.
he then got found guilty of assaulting a prison officer, and then subsequently spent 56 days in solitary. So he's being quite clever in the whole prison thing. He's basically
Mhm.
making sure that he stays on his own.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
think that's what
yeah,
he's doing. He's being mischievous enough to get in trouble, but nothing
mhm,
too serious that he's going to get charges really for it. So he's making
yeah.
sure that he's by himself. I think that's what he's doing.
But
Now,
this is so strange when you consider everything else he's done before this, right? So
mm,
he's killing people and he's propping them up and he's,
mm,
putting makeup on some and he so
yeah,
that he has company, right?
yeah,
And that people don't leave him.
yeah,
But now he's acting out so that he can only be alone.
yeah. I mean, whether that is because of his sexuality and he's worried about what's going to happen, whether he's going to get attached to
Mm,
somebody else, whether it's because he doesn't, I don't know, maybe he's embarrassed about what he's done. He doesn't want to speak to anyone else. Perhaps that's why. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he's just tried to get himself on his own. I'm not really sure why. I don't know why he's done that. So on the 26th of May in 1983, he was committed to stand trial at the Old Bailey. Now, he was going to be standing trial on 5 counts of murder and 2 of attempted murder.
mhm.
Now, he was represented by a solicitor called Ronald Moss, who had been previously dismissed as his legal representative. I don't know why, but he had complained to the magistrates that he couldn't count on his own defense. Basically, he didn't have any faith in his own defense. And this Moss, stayed as his legal representative until July 1983, when he then tried to defend himself and discharged him. So he was then going to be, but then he did, and then until 5th of August, he reappointed him and got him to sort of stand trial for him and sort of represent him. Now, the problem was he was brought to trial on the 24th of October in 1983, charged with 6 counts. And now an extra count has been actually added to this. So it's 6 counts of
Yeah.
murder and 2 of attempted murder. And he was tried at the Old Bailey before Justice Croom Johnson. He pleaded not guilty on all charges. I know.
I'm confused about this.
Yeah. I don't understand why. He's basically 5 weeks before his trial, he dismissed Moss again and then decided to be represented by this guy called Ralph Haems. And he actually gave him
Okay.
the advice to plead not guilty by diminished responsibility. So he's basically
Mm,
advised him, you just plead not guilty for like reasons of insanity, basically. So that's what he does.
yeah.
He does that. So he basically pleads not guilty and says that it's not the prosecution are saying that it's not whether he actually killed the victims. It was concerning his state of mind before and during the killings. So they're basically
Hmm.
trying to say he was like mental or psychotic, and
Yeah.
that's why he's killed these people. But this hasn't happened in one. one episode. This is episode after episode after episode.
Mhm.
You can't
Yeah.
surely say that you're sane one day, then you're insane, then you're sane again, then you're insane again. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the defense counsel, this is a QC called Ivan Lawrence. He argued that Dennis Nielsen suffered from diminished responsibility, rendering him incapable of forming the intention to commit murder. So therefore, he should only be convicted of manslaughter. So basically just trying to get him the best deal they can. They know they all know that he killed him. There's no disputing that, but they're just trying to get him the most lenient sentence they can by arguing their way out of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they're going to go to court and they're going to lose. He's going to go down for something, so they might as well try and get him down for the least amount that they can.
Okay, so this is what I'm curious about, right? So there's gonna be a difference between if he's guilt. Okay, so I think don't think anyone is arguing if he's guilty or not, right? We're going, is he guilty because of insanity, or
Yeah.
was he is he culpable in his actions?
Mm,
So in England,
mm.
what's the difference between, I guess, the sentence wise? What are we looking at? I mean, there's no death penalty in England. So
No, be life
if
in
he's
prison.
culpable for his actions, he'll get life, right? But if it
Life, yeah.
due to would he get life if it's because of mental illness, or because of insanity?
If no, he might be committed to a mental institute. He might be committed to somewhere like that. He might if
Mhm.
he's done if you kill somebody and it's manslaughter because of your bad actions, or you've not paid attention and somebody's died because of manslaughter. I think that's you get more time in prison for that. If it's on the diminished responsibility because you are insane, I think you can get committed into just like some sort of an asylum, which I guess would have been like Wormwood Scrubs kind of area, because that would have what was a hospital at some point, like for the criminally insane.
Yeah.
And so that I think what they're trying to do is they know that he's been caught now. They're just trying to get him as least sentence as they can. There's no
Mhm.
arguing that something is going to be done, but I can't see how they're trying to do it that he's not in control of his actions. Maybe once, but not like 12, 13, 14, 15 times.
Yeah.
How can you argue
I'm
that?
kinda I'm kinda up in the air with this, to be
Yeah,
honest. I think it's definitely obvious that he lacks some sort of self-control,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's unable to stop these feelings of, I don't think it's rage. It was never rage. I don't think it was rage with him, right? It
No, I
wasn't
mean,
some homicidal rage.
no. They've all the people that survived, the people that got away from him have said he was in some kind of like trance.
Yeah, so I was gonna bring up that Carl Stoddard again, right? The
Yeah,
the gentleman that he killed and brought back.
yeah,
That makes it, to me, seem like maybe he wasn't in control of what he was doing,
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
And it was only later when he realized, "Oh, I see what's going on." He, you know, did what he could to bring him back to life.
Mm. Now he
I don't know.
Now this Carl Stotter, he says that he had attempted to strangle and drown him before bringing him back to life. He said he
Mhm.
repeatedly attempted to drown him in his bathtub as he pleaded in vain for his life to be spared, and he later woke up to find Nielsen's dog licking his face. So
Hmm.
he but this the evidence that was provided by him wasn't included as part of the indictment against Nielsen, because his whereabouts were not known until after the indictment had been completed. So
Hmm.
this didn't even get brought into court, this guy's
Oh.
testimony. So basically
Which
these
which probably that probably could have helped him, helped
yeah.
Dennis a little bit, I think.
Well, yeah, because because he basically says he was very nice, and before he got into this like trance, he was really nice and lovely, and they slept together, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
he goes into this like weird, almost automatic kind of strange psychotic, like I don't know, it's really strange, isn't it? And then
It
But
is.
then a lot of people say that, don't they? When you watch documentaries about serial killers and serial, murderers and stuff, that they do say that quite a lot of the time, and like with Dharma and stuff, they say that they're in this like zone where it's automatic, like something else
Mhm.
takes over, and after the aftermath of it, when they actually come back to their normal sentence, um, sorry, their normal kind of life, they look at it and go, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, what have I done?"
I and if you think about it, you really think about it, that it makes sense why they do that, right? Because I think, like, killing someone goes against human nature,
Yeah.
I think, right? So you
And it's
have to be able to shut that off.
and
You
to
have to shut
strangle
that.
somebody is
Mhm.
it takes a lot to strangle somebody. It's a lot of
Yeah.
effort. It's not a quick, easy thing. It's a very traumatic, the person is fighting back for their life. It takes a lot of I've read before, it takes a lot of effort to actually strangle a person to death.
Yeah.
So that would sort of make sense that they're in this kind of, like you say, it goes against all human nature to kill somebody. If you're in
Mhm.
some kind of like trance like state, when you come round from that, you're then faced with what you've done, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you're right. I wonder if that is what's happening to him and he's not in control of what he's doing purely because of his state of
Yeah.
mind.
Crazy.
It is. It's really, really crazy. So obviously he was he was sentenced. They basically said that he was a very manipulative person who was perfectly capable of having normal relationships with people, and that
Mhm.
he just was, a bad man. So on the 3rd of November 1983, the closing arguments were done for the prosecution and the defense. The jury retired to consider their verdict, and they returned the following day with a majority verdict of guilty upon 6 counts of murder and one of attempted murder. And it was a unanimous verdict of guilty as well in the relation to attempted murder of, that guy that got away. So they actually did do that, as he got a unanimous verdict of guilty and
Hmm.
intent to murder as well. So he was then sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he served a minimum of 25 years.
That why do they give a minimum? Like, okay, minimum. It should just be life. Life is life.
Life is life. I know, and it's not over here. Life is like 25 years.
Yeah.
So
So this is basically he got life with the possibility of parole, is
yeah,
what we're looking at,
yeah,
which is crazy.
yeah. It is absolutely ridiculous. Now he, oh yeah,
Because if
he
this
so
was
he,
if this was done here, right? So you have six. So he was guilty on counts of murder.
yeah,
He would have been sentenced to six life sentences,
which
right,
is
for each one.
that's right, and that should be right, shouldn't it? That should be how it is. We are
Yeah.
soft over here. We are soft. So he was transferred to Wormwood Scrubs. Like I said to you, he's transferred to Wormwood Scrubs prison, and he was a Category A prisoner, which means he had his own cell. He could mix freely
Uh-huh.
with everybody else. He basically accepted it. He didn't appeal. He just accepted his lot and went into prison quite happily. He said that on the day of his conviction, he said that there was a lot of social seduction, that it was it was like getting a friend back. The decision to kill, the body, disposing of it. So he's basically admitted afterwards that it was a thrill that he got from it.
Huh. Yeah.
He also said that it was drunkenness which was the sole reason that those attempted murders were unsuccessful. So this is all after he's been convicted. He then comes out with all this. So it was quite obvious that he meant to
Yeah.
do it, which is really bad, I think. Um, he did have a few scuppers in prison. He was cut in the face with a razor blade by an inmate who was called Albert Moffat, and he
Uh
required
huh.
89 stitches for
Ooh.
this. So this wasn't just a little cut.
Yeah.
He was then
The
transferred to
yeah,
Parkhurst
sliced,
Prison.
yeah.
Yeah, properly. So he's obviously pissed someone off. He was transferred then to Parkhurst Prison, and then he was transferred to Wakefield Prison, which is where he stayed until 1990. He was
Okay.
then transferred in 1991 to a vulnerable prisoner unit at Full Sutton Prison because they had concerns for his safety. So he's obviously not
Mhm.
mixing well with people in prison because he's moved and moved and moved and moved all the time. He stayed there until 1993 when he was transferred to Whitemore Prison. Now, I was 13 in 1993, and this is about the time that I remember Dennis Nilsen's name being in the papers. So I was old enough to understand then what was going on. And this is when I think I remember most of like him being in the paper, being moved around. I remember seeing him in the paper. Now he was then sent away from other prison inmates when he was at Whitemore Prison. So he's being kept away from people there. And in 1983, the minimum term of 25 years that he got given was replaced by a whole life tariff by the Home Secretary Michael Howard in 1994. So this meant that
Okay.
he would never ever be released from prison.
Well, okay, how can they change the sentence after the fact?
I don't know how
So
that works.
did the 25-year minimum term, did that just completely go away for everyone, or
Yeah.
was it this just
No,
done
I
for
don't
him?
know. Well, as far as I can read, that I've found, I don't know that there's anybody else that this has happened to, that where it's been done after the fact. And this Home
Mhm.
Secretary, the Home Secretary at the time, Michael Howard, he. I mean, the Home Secretary. I don't know if it's the same as over there. So basically, the Home Secretary is a senior minister of the Crown. So it's the head of the Home Office, basically. So one of the a very very high member of the Home Office. It's the head. So he then comes forward and says that it's not right and that he
Nah,
needs to be given a whole life tariff. I don't know
yeah.
how you can do that.
You you can't do that here.
Mm, no, and I
You
don't
cannot
know
do
of
that
I
here.
don't know of any other ones that's happened here. To be honest, we don't
Yeah.
give whole life tariffs very often. If you remember
Uh-huh.
the case we did on April Jones, he was given a whole life tariff, never to be released from prison, even
Okay.
though
Now, okay, I agree with that, especially in this case. I
yeah,
agree that
totally.
the whole life tariff, right?
Mm.
But I don't agree with the fact that this home secretary, which I still don't even know what the hell a home secretary is, that he can change a sentence like that.
Mm. So he's the Secretary of State basically for us here. So he's the head of the Home Office. So he's that
Okay.
government. So is he is a senior
What
member
is
of
he
the.
doing? What
I know.
he shouldn't have the ability to change sentences like that.
I
This is
think maybe
why the
they've.
United
But
States is such a better country than the United Kingdom.
I think what's happened is I think they've looked at this and gone, "Whoa, 25 years minimum is not good enough."
Okay, that could be absolutely correct, and it is
Mm,
absolutely correct.
mm,
But he shouldn't have the power to go, "No, I don't like this sentence. He's gonna be in there the rest of his life."
yeah. I don't know. I don't
That's
know any other
crazy to
case
me.
that that's happened. I don't know of any other
Yeah.
cases, and I didn't
I
actually
don't
know
like
that
the
this has
fact
happened here.
I don't like this is what I really don't like. I don't like the fact that I'm here defending a serial killer on a podcast
Yeah.
because I shouldn't be defending this guy at all.
No.
But
He
it's
deserves
it's
this.
crazy that a home secretary or here in the United States, Secretary of State. So if ever Secretary of State Mike Pompeo here in the United States goes and says, "Oh, I'm gonna change this guy's sentence and or I'm gonna release this guy from jail because I said no, 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 no. That's not happening here.
No, no.
That is not
I
happening here."
I mean, I agree with what they've done. I agree that he's got this whole life tariff. I think that
Yeah.
I think somebody somewhere has put this forward to the Home Secretary and said, "Look, hang on a minute, this isn't right. This guy is evil. He's killed multiple people, and they've only given him 25 years. It should be like you say,
Yeah.
25 years for each person he's
Mhm.
killed. In which case, he's
Yeah.
never getting out. And that's I think what's happened. And I think also with all the problems of him in jail as well, he's had obviously lots of
Mhm.
problems, and so it's obviously that he's not a sound character. Um, so that's what happened. So basically, he accepted this. He didn't appeal it. He completely accepted it. And then
Okay.
his last transfer was to HMP Full Sutton, which is he was a category A prisoner then, and he worked in the prison workshop where he translated books into Braille. I don't know
Okay.
how that happened. I don't know how he knew Braille, but he transferred books into
Yeah.
Braille. he spent a lot of his time reading and writing. He was allowed to paint and make music, and it was weird. And he also had letters from the public. People were writing to him, and he had pen pals and stuff like that, which I also don't think is right. Um, and then he remained there until he died on the 28th of May 2018.
Well,
And that's,
good.
yeah, until he died. Now, he did have a 400-page autobiography, which is called The History of a Drowning Boy.
Okay.
And this title, I think, is very clever, because he says that it is a reference to his ideas of the tranquility of death following his grandfather's death.
Yeah.
And there was an incident in 1954 where he nearly drowned. He was in some water, and he nearly drowned, but he was
Oh,
saved by
yeah.
somebody else. But whilst he was nearly drowning, he was expecting his grandfather to come and save him. But of course, his grandfather had already died,
Mhm.
and he nearly died from that drowning episode. So, but he says that is the name of his book, and it's not, is it? It's obviously because of the people that he drowned.
Yeah.
So that brings in a
Huh.
lot of that. He almost drowned as a child. His grandfather was at sea, working at sea, and died at sea. He drowned all these. He didn't need to drown these people because he had already strangled them. But he strangled them and then drowned them. So it seems that this water is also a reoccurring thing in his life. It all seems to knit together, which is also very strange.
Yeah.
So he talks in his book quite a lot about when he was in the real world with people, it was a real life scenario for him. But then when he was privately on his own, he snapped into this fantasy life, and that he could basically switch between the two. So his fantasy life was all sexual fantasies about the young, attractive partner that was passive, and the older, active, and more aggressive partner. But then when he was in normal real life with normal people, he was just a normal guy. And he goes into quite good detail about his book. Um, he died from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. So that's how he
Okay.
died. He suffered a blood clot and a complication of the surgery, and died then. So they basically say it was a hemorrhage that killed him.
Yeah.
And that basically is the end of him as we know it.
Jeez. That's so crazy. Okay, I'm reading about this, right? So
Mm.
they have some of his several items from. Okay, so several items from his Cranley Gardens address are on display at the New Scotland Yard's Crime Museum.
Oh,
Oh, you
wow.
got to be kidding me! These exhibits include the stove upon which Nielsen had boiled the heads of his final three victims, the knives he had used to dissect several of the victims' bodies,
Isn't that
and the
crazy?
headphones Nielsen used to strangle Ockenden. Ockenden.
Yeah, Ockenden, yeah.
Okay, I think we got to go there.
When you come to visit.
Yeah, definitely.
After CrimeCon, we'll go.
That is crazy.
But I
So
mean, why
crazy.
would you? It's like keeping Ted Bundy's car, isn't it? I mean, people go to see
Yeah.
that. I mean, people are going to go to see the stove in which the heads were. I mean, that's gross. That's macabre, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I'd,
But yeah, it's so strange.
So if
Okay,
you
so how
want to look
many?
up, go on. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say how many. Okay, so what was the total number of bodies, victims again? Do we
So
know? Like
we think
15?
it was about 15. Suspected number is about 15. Nine, at least nine were killed at Melrose Avenue, and the final
Mhm.
three were killed at Cranley Gardens. But he says there's 8 identified victims. So there was, only 3 of them. It was Stephen Holmes, Kenneth Ockenden, and Graham Allen. They were the only 3 out of all of those people that had a permanent address. So
Oh,
the rest of them were pretty much runaways, male prostitutes, like you said, people that wouldn't be
yeah.
missed, people that didn't really have a history, a background. Nobody would be missing them. It's yeah. I mean, if you have a look, you can have a look on Wikipedia, and there is a lot. It lists them in chronological order, when they happen, where they
Yeah.
happen, who they are. Obviously, they can't name all of them because there are bodies that they never found that he's only recounted. There's one that he calls like the blue-eyed Scot or something like that, and there's one
Mhm.
that he only knows the first name of. So not everybody can be
Yeah.
identified because he's the only one that knows what they look like. there aren't any sort of photo fits or little bits of evidence that we can put together to find out who they are.
Yeah, and it looks like okay, from this list, it looks like he was mostly active or his high point, I don't know what you wanna call it, was like
Mm,
80 and 81 because
yeah,
there's August, September, October, November, December, January, February.
yeah,
Yeah, and
a
then
lot.
once he moved to the new
Cranley
address on,
Gardens, yeah.
Cranley Gardens, yeah, it really I mean, over the course of, we'll say, 2 years or
Mm.
a year and a half,
So there's
all
only
3
3.
victims.
Yeah.
March, September, and then January.
But I think that's purely because of opportunity. He didn't have the storage space to store them. He had is a lot more work.
Mhm.
When he was in Melrose Avenue, he was able to store them underneath, and then he was able to dissect them. I mean, they were already decomposing, so it wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
So he could get rid of them and then burn them in the garden, and nobody thought anything of it. It was only when he moved to Cranley Gardens that things became quite difficult. I mean, you've got a whole body to try and chop up and get rid of, and of course,
Yeah.
it all went a bit wrong, didn't it? And in the end, he had no choice but to come clean. They had him there and then. But I think that, the detective Jay, imagine that. Imagine turning up somewhere where there's possibly human bones or, some sort of
Mm.
waxy liquid in a drain, and then uncovering this case where this guy has killed like
Yeah.
15 people. That must have been a crazy day at work for him,
Yeah.
because
'Cause what
that's just crazy.
and what do they call it? So was he called, like, was he the friendly killer? What do they call him?
They called him those.
He had a few
Yeah.
different names,
He
didn't he?
had Muswell Hill Murderer, they had, um he was called all different sorts of things. I think that's the most one that I've heard, the Muswell Hill Murderer. But
Oh,
obviously
okay.
he killed outside of Muswell Hill, but that was the one that I think is most known for.
So strange.
But I wonder what happens with when you write an autobiography. He says that the autobiography was unpublished. I think
Mhm.
unpublished at the time of his death. And I wonder what happens with that afterwards.
Um,
Because obviously the
well, if it was
money can't go to
here
the can't you know the money can't go to the victims' families necessarily,
yeah.
because there isn't a lot of, victims that we know of, that we don't know a lot of their family. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wonder what happened with his book. I'm going to see if I can. It says it was unpublished, 400-page autobiography. Um, it doesn't actually say what happened with that. What happened with
I don't
that
I I
autobiography?
don't think it probably was ever officially published, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, here, let's see. When was this from? Twisted Book to be released. When was this from? Okay, here. This is from August 2020. Twisted
Okay.
Book by serial killer Dennis Nielsen to be released. Withdrawing of corpses.
No, this is
Yeah. So it was
2020.
okay. So yeah, this is August 20th, 2020. So it was initially, I guess the book was initially outlawed by the Home Office,
Mm.
right? Let's see. Gruesome autobiography by serial killer Dennis Nielsen is set to be released 17 years after it was banned from publication. Um,
Oh,
so they outlawed, yeah, Home Office outlawed the printing of the book while it was alive, but now a friend will now publish it.
really?
Yeah.
Is it bad that I want to read that?
Yes. No, I don't know. I don't know.
I just think it would be quite an interesting. I think it'd be an interesting book to read, from his own,
Yeah.
from his own. It's in his own words, because he wrote the autobiography in prison. So I'd be quite interested to see how he explains what happened.
I don't know.
I don't want to read sort of, the actual. I don't need to hear the discussion of what he actually did, but I would like to
Yeah.
understand why he did what he did, how he felt, why did he do, because as a young child that certain things are right and certain things are wrong. He knew that
Uh,
what he was doing was wrong, but it's almost like a compulsion. He almost like he just, not that he couldn't help it, because he obviously can help it, but he was, it really interests me, that kind of thing, as to why somebody would behave like that. Why, obviously not he's not right in the head, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but why? What I honestly think this goes back to something must have happened to him in his childhood to make him seek this attention and seek this companionship, and to have, obviously, the homosexuality back then also was a problem because he couldn't
Yeah.
really. But then there are lots of homosexuals back then that haven't murdered people and,
Hmm.
stored
Yeah.
people under their houses, so that's not an excuse at all.
I don't know.
See what happens when you let me do cases. I bring you stuff like this.
I
But yeah, I just
know.
thought it was a really interesting one to look at, because obviously it's quite,
Extremely.
because of the
Yeah.
TV program over here, and I honestly thought that more people knew about this case, and perhaps they actually do. So I think
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand why more people don't know about this.
Well, I told you what my theory on it,
Mm.
right?
But since then he's been found. So since then, I'm surprised, since he was actually, put in prison, why is this not a more well-known case now? You know?
Because it wasn't women or children.
That's true. It's sad, isn't it? That it's really
It
sad.
is. Yeah.
But I mean, one of them was a 14-year-old boy. So,
Hmm.
there's kids in there. So not only really is he, you know, into necrophilia, but he's also, paedophile. He's kind of
Yeah.
pedophilic. Is that
No,
even a word?
not
But
kinda.
because he's going, that's his preferred kind of thing, isn't it? A young, slender
Yeah.
male. So there's kind of
Someone that he can control.
control. So it's almost like he's compensating for the lack of control in his own life, and then when he's in these scenarios, he's actually controlling the situation.
Yeah.
He's in control of it. He likes to be the older, more dominant person in this little fantasy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a very,
What a
very crazy
creep.
case. Yeah. A proper creepo, as you would say.
Proper creepo.
A proper creepo. So,
Oh,
yeah.
no, I'm glad you did this one.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? And the more I look into it, the more I want to know. The more I want to know about him as a person, and why this happened. So yeah, so
Uh,
thank you.
okay. So now the question is,
Mm,
who is creepier, Dennis Nielsen
mm.
or Matthew Hoffman?
Oh God. That's really hard, isn't it? Because the leaves.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
the thing, I think it's got to be Dennis Nilsen, because he dressed the bodies up and sat with them and lay with them.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know the leaves are creepy, but this guy,
Yeah,
I think
and burying them, or not even burying, hiding the bodies in a hollowed out tree. That's pretty creepy.
that is
I think
creepy.
you're right, though.
I
I
wonder if
think you're right.
I wonder if he hadn't have been caught. I wonder if he would have gone back to those bodies. I bet he would have done.
I think so.
He would have gone back to visit them, wouldn't he? He wouldn't have just left it
Hmm.
like that. He would have kept an eye on them. He would have watched them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Ah, creepo. We need to have a creepometer in our podcast. And we need to rank people on the creepometer as to who is. I think so far Dennis Nielsen is the creepiest.
He is the creepiest. So right now we'll call it the Dennis Nielsen creepo meter. How about
Right,
that?
okay. I'm going to write this into the Crimepedia book. So the creepometer. So we can keep an eye on this.
So
At the
how out of
moment,
how
we've got.
many? So do we do it out of how many Dennis Nielsens? So
Yeah,
what would be the
yeah,
most Dennis Nielsen out of 5
yeah.
Dennis Nielsens? How creepy is the
Definitely.
person?
Definitely. I like that. Out of 5 Dennis
So
Nielsen.
Dennis Nielsen's definitely 5.
He's 5
Right?
out
So
of
Dennis
5.
Nielsen
Yeah.
has to be 5 out of 5.
Yep.
So what we're gonna say, Matthew Hoffman is
He's got to be a good solid
4?
4. Yeah, good solid
4
4.
out of 5. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to write this down. So Matthew Hoffman is the leader at the moment with 4. Dennis Nielsen's out 5.
Yeah. Well, Dennis Nielsen is the leader.
Yeah.
Until someone can go over the 5 Dennis Nielsens,
And take the top.
Dennis
Yeah.
Nielsen's the leader.
Okay, so we've got Dennis Nielsen at the top, and then we've got Matthew Hoffman as a solid number 2. Oh,
Yeah. Oh.
the
I'm sure our
creepometer.
listeners out there are sitting and thinking now, like, oh, who can be up there in the Dennis Nielsens? And there's
Creepometer.
plenty.
There's loads.
There's
There's
plenty.
loads. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, our the couple in Germany that we did that as a Crimepedia extra, didn't we?
Oh, we
The
did
House of
do it
Horrors.
as
Now they would
they
be a
are
solid
they're at
4.5.
least 5. No,
Do you
they
reckon?
might be a 5.
Really?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Because they were super creepy. They were
They're
really
su
weird.
and you saw the house they lived in.
Yeah, and it was disgusting. So that I think they're right up there with old Dennis. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they are. Well, okay. So since not to ruin it, ruin our Dennis Nielsen creepometer, or is that what I call it?
creepometer. Yeah, I like it.
The Dennis Nielsen creepometer.
Yeah,
So just so that they don't go, we'll say 4.5,
yeah.
just to keep that at the
We'll
top.
put them. Yeah, we'll put
But
them at 4.5.
they're right up there.
I can't remember their names. There was a House of Horrors, wasn't it?
The Hucksta House of
Hogstar,
Horrors.
that's
Yeah.
it. Hogstar House of Horrors.
Wagoner,
That's
wasn't it?
right. Yeah, that's right. Wagner. It was the Wagner.
Wagner.
Oh, they were
Angelica,
horrible.
and I can't remember I can't remember the guy's name right now.
I can't remember his name
Angelica.
either. Angelica was the wife, wasn't it? And he was it wasn't Hans, was it? Hang on, I'm gonna find it now because
No, Hans. Walter, I don't know. We'll look it up.
Angelica Wagner, and she was with. Oh, that's a doctor. She's on Twitter. It's definitely not her. Hoxter House of Horrors. Let's find it.
It was
Oh,
why can't
oh,
I think
there
of
it
who
is.
it
I've
is
got it.
now?
I've got it. Hang on. Angelica and
Oh, I know what it is. Okay.
oh, where is it? I can't find. I've got the thing up here.
Wilfred. It was Wilfred.
Wilfred. That's right. Wilfred and
Wilfred
Angelica.
and Angelica Wagoner or
Right.
Wagner.
Wilfred and Angelica. They can be number 2 then. Angelica.
They are definitely number 2.
Okay, so they are number 2, and then we've got Matthew Hoffman, who's number 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
our top 3 on the creepometer. So I'm going to have one. If we get to CrimeCon, I'm going to make up our creepometer. It'll be like Top Gear. If you watch in England, it'd be like Top Gear and their little fastest car around the track. This is going to be our Crimepedia creepometer. That's what we're going to do. Oh dear. So
Okay, so
yes,
then yeah, there we go.
there we go. That's this week's episode. Thank you very much for joining us. It's very good to have you along, and hopefully we haven't creeped you out too much with this one. Don't have nightmares, kids. It's not nice. So
Oh,
tell us what you think. Let us know what you think of the episode. And don't forget, if you are on the internet and want to be friendly, just pop over to wherever you download your podcast and give us a nice 5-star rating. That would be lovely. Thank you.
yes, that'd be lovely. Follow us on Instant Messenger.
You can follow us on
Instagram.
Instant Messenger. Yeah, we'll write back to you if you send us messages.
AOL. Follow us on AOL Instant Messenger.
MSN Messenger. Age, sex, location.
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram. I have my own. Well, we both have our own. I'm Morgan Crimepedia. She's Cherry Crimepedia. Then our main page is Crimepedia. Simple as that. You can follow us on Instagram. We got a page up on Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook. Yeah,
We're pretty much
plenty
everywhere.
of places to follow us.
Tell the lovely people at CrimeCon UK you want to see us at CrimeCon, and we will be there. If we can be there, we will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. Next week it'll be Morgan's case. It's got a great case for you for next week, and I look forward to hearing that one. And as always,
Be nice.
bye. You do that so much better than me. Your buys are way better than mine.
No. Yours are good. Bye.
Oh, I love it.